think, yes, it looks so, most people here. So let's get going then. So first of all, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for coming along to this inaugural session for the Ask the Experts. It's a collaboration between the Complementary Medical Association and the Private Practitioners Hub. So what I would like to do is start by introducing our guest, our very first guest in this series. His name is Dr. Neil Thompson, and I've got various notes because Neil is incredibly eminent. He actually has not one, but 2 doctorates. He's incredibly modest. He just introduced himself as, I'm Dr. Neil Thompson, and I actually had to prize the information out of him, and we're very, very blessed and very lucky to have him with us. He's been an independent writer, educator, and advisor for almost 23 years now. A major theme of his work has been communication, and that's actually brought him into the world of marketing, which is, after all, of course, all about communication. I think we could say, Neil, if you would agree with this, is that this session really looks at getting the best out of digital marketing opportunities for practitioners, therapists, counsellors, people involved in the caring professions. Would you say that's accurate, Neil?
Yes, very much so.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. So what I'd like to do is start by asking you to introduce yourself, and if you can explain to everybody what you do and how you actually help counsellors, practitioners, therapists, and possibly other people as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. My background's in social work. I was employed in various forms of social work for just under 20 years when I decided to make the break and set up my own business. Mm-hmm. And that business has been going now, as you mentioned, for almost 23 years. And that's involved me in writing, training, advising around various issues to do with social work and the caring professions more broadly. In the last year or so, I've also been working with my daughter, who is a partner in a marketing business. And what brings us together in terms of this is, as you mentioned also, the theme of communication. Marketing is about communication. A big part of my work has been helping individuals and organizations to communicate more effectively. So my daughter is a partner in a business called Online Business Builder. And what that business offers is a monthly package of digital marketing services. So people pay the equivalent of £5 a day to get a website, local search engine optimization, and social media support. And from supporting my daughter in that work, what I realized was that this type of service would be ideal for self-employed caring professionals. And so I've been working with the company as a consultant to develop Caring Business Builder, which is a sort of a branch of Online Business Builder, but specifically for people in the caring professions who are running their own business. Because, well, the reason I wanted to go down that line is because I'm conscious that when I made the transition from almost 20 years as a wage slave in a public service context into being self-employed in a competitive business environment, that was one heck of a transition to make. And I'm conscious from talking to a lot of self-employed caring professionals these days that that transition can be really difficult, and sustaining a business in an environment that is very competitive doesn't necessarily come naturally to people in who've got a background in healthcare, social care, counselling, therapy, and so on. Okay.
Going to mute Tim because he's got a lot of background noise. He'll be able to hear us still, but there's a lot of background noise that's going on at the moment. So anyway, sorry, Neil. Yeah, please do carry on.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do then is to help people with a caring professions background who are currently self-employed, running their own business, to try and get their marketing right, because basically if you are in business then you need to sell your services, and my experience is that people with a caring professions background find it difficult to sell themselves. to put themselves forward. It doesn't fit with the sort of personality and the sort of background that leads people into the caring professions.
Yes.
So a lot of people can lose out because they may, for example, provide an excellent service, but somebody whose service is not so good is actually getting the business because that person is better at marketing.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I think that's unfair.
I completely agree. Yes, you're absolutely right. I have to completely echo what you're saying, because when I did, as I'm president of the Complementary Medical Association, so we're celebrating our 27th birthday this year, in fact. So over the last 3 decades of being a practitioner and observing what goes on within the profession, and then more recently doing my master's degree, I'm nowhere near as eminent as you are, but for my master's research study and dissertation, I actually looked at what the factors are that allow some practitioners to thrive in business and why the vast majority of practitioners do not thrive in business. And it actually, of course, boils down to communication. The methodology I used was grounded theory methodology to actually tease out what those factors are. So I completely agree with you. We're so much on the same page here. And we've seen over the last, my colleague Roberta is in the room. I introduced you to her earlier, Neil, but I'd also like to introduce Roberta. Could you give us a wave, Roberta, so people can see you? Hello. Thanks, lovely. So Roberta and I have observed exactly what you're saying, that you may find that you've got a practitioner who's not particularly offering the best service, but because they're slaving away, just seeing clients, seeing patients or what have you in their practice, and they're not necessarily the type of personality who's actually able to kind of grasp the horns of certainly digital marketing or marketing of any other sort.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is difficult for people in the caring professions to actually sell themselves? What is it about them?
Well, I think it's largely about the type of personality that is attracted to working in caring professions in the first place. To use the technical term, people in the caring professions tend to be other-directed. Is that they focus on helping others. In fact, it can be a major problem in the caring professions that people neglect their own needs, their own self-care needs, because they're so focused on helping, supporting, empowering other people. And so it stands to reason that in that type of caring profession, it's going to attract people who want to support other people. So the focus is other-directed, as they say. But
Yeah.
when it comes to marketing your own services, then you have to focus on what you have to offer. You basically have to show off. You have to say, look at what wonderful things I can do for you. And that tends to not sit comfortably with somebody who is used to focusing on other people's needs.
You're right. Yes, we're not very good at blowing our own trumpets, are we?
Exactly.
In this profession. No, I see that a lot. So let me ask you: do counsellors, practitioners, therapists, and so on, anybody in the natural healthcare profession, do they really have to get involved in marketing? Do you see this as a core element of developing their practice?
Yeah, well, if you think about where the word marketing comes from originally, it goes back to ancient times where people had to literally take their goods to the marketplace. So we now use that term metaphorically to mean being able to publicize what it is that we have to offer. So if somebody doesn't let the world know that they offer a service, then it's highly unlikely that anybody is going to take up that service.
Yes.
Now, for some people, they're lucky. They may not have to do marketing. For example, if they've written a best-selling book, for example, then the book will do the marketing for them. But those people are going to be in the minority, obviously.
Very few and far between. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. So most people have to make the world, or at least their part of the world that they're trying to appeal to, aware of what it is they offer, the value of what they offer. And in a sense, that's exactly what marketing is about.
Of course, absolutely. So I think I'm probably right in saying that most practitioners nowadays tend to have websites. Now, obviously, websites are a bit of a double-edged sword in a way because, you know, on one hand, they are your shop window on the world, aren't they? So they sort of tell the world what you actually do. But on the other hand, you know, you've got to keep it up to date and relevant. So how important do you feel it is to actually make sure that the website is effective, and what steps can a practitioner take to actually ensure that their website is actually serving them properly and getting their message out into the world?
Yes. Well, you see, one of the things that appealed to me about working with the company that I'm now acting as a consultant to is that the people in that company have got background in marketing and in web design. Whereas what tends to happen is that most web designers have a background, funnily enough, in designing websites,
Right.
but not in marketing. So the result of that is that a lot of websites, they look very pretty, but they don't actually do their job in terms of marketing.
Yes, absolutely.
What a website should do basically is say, if you have a problem, I think I have the solution for you. Whereas a lot of websites are confusing. They don't actually do that. For example, you can have websites that talk about awards that they've won and about how impressive they are, but that doesn't matter to somebody who's got a particular problem and they're looking for a solution.
Right.
So what an effective website needs to do is, and to do it very quickly, because of course the research shows that people will move on to another website within a matter of seconds if it doesn't grab their attention initially. So the website has to very quickly get the message across. This is how I or we can help you. And if you start looking at business websites, what you'll see is relatively few of them actually do that because, as I say, they weren't built by people with a background in marketing. They were built by people who are good at designing websites.
Making things look very pretty on screen, but actually having zero functionality. It's a bit like in the old days of publishing newspapers. In fact, it's still relevant, isn't it? About getting that important information, as they say, above the fold, and placing things actually physically on the page, if you like, the web page, so that actually responds to the way that people actually respond to buying messages and sort of selling messages. So that's really, really helpful. So it seems to me that the people that let me just get rid of that. Sorry, I've got something popped up on my screen there. So it seems to me that people who are successful with websites probably need to go to professionals like yourselves. I mean, I think that's really, unless they have a marketing background and they are up to date with absolutely every aspect of social media. Let me just ask you, things like search engines like Google seem to be important. What's your position regarding things like Google Ads and so on?
Yeah, well, sadly, Google is very close to ruling the world. It's such a powerful organization, and it's of course a very useful organization. You know, but most people use Google on a fairly regular basis to find things that they are looking for. So it's extremely useful. But because there is so much information on Google, it's very easy to get lost there. So if you're trying to market your business as a counselor or a therapist, for example, to your local area, then Google will have details about all the counselors and therapists in the whole country, not just in your area. So an important thing in terms of Google is to make sure that the website has been set up in the right way, which will enable people to find you. And what's particularly important there is that it is optimized in terms of the searching for the local area. For example, if you have somebody who is working in a particular geographical area, but they have set up their site without reference to that specific area, the chances of them coming up on the first page of Google when anybody searches for their services is minimal, basically. Well, it just isn't going to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
So the key, in a sense, to Google is a local focus. And most of the companies that provide search engine optimization services will not necessarily focus on the local area, and that then makes it expensive.
Yes, of course. No, that's very, very helpful. And what about social media? Again, it's one of these double-edged swords, isn't it? And the problem I find is that we, as the Complementary Medical Association, we're attempting to be present on the most relevant social media platforms, but it's absolutely horrendous trying to run your business and ensure that you are actually keeping all of those different social media platforms updated. Now, what we've done is we've actually taken on somebody who specializes in social media. Obviously, we're in a privileged position and we're able to actually employ somebody full-time to do social media for us. And we couldn't do without her. So what's your position? What's the lone single practitioner to do?
Well, I think it's a really important question, so I'm glad you've asked that. Most people make two mistakes with social media for business, and possibly a third one. One mistake is that, in my experience, the majority of people are using social media to publicize their business don't have a strategy. They are, in a sense, dabbling. So they'll try a bit of this, they'll try a bit of that, and they're not really clear about what they're trying to achieve, how they're going to achieve it, and so on. So the net result is that they can spend an awful lot of time on social media, because we all know how it eats up the hours, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's right. And then not actually achieve anything, that they're no better off after spending a lot of time on social media. So that's the first thing, is you really need a strategy. You need to be clear about what are you trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it. What are the best steps to take for your specific business and your specific circumstances. The second mistake that most people seem to make is they spread themselves too thinly. So what they will do is try and have a presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and all the others, WhatsApp, Pinterest, and the list is constantly growing. Now, if you are trying to have a presence, a meaningful presence on a wide range of platforms, then A, you're creating a huge workload for yourself, and B, you are running the risk that it's going to be a complete waste of time because, as I say, you're spreading yourself too thinly. So what we recommend is that you establish yourself on one platform, become well known on that platform, and then once you've done that, you can then think about moving on to other platforms to become better known there.
That's right.
So those are the two main mistakes that people tend to make. A third one possibly is that a lot of people will spend time doing the social media stuff themselves rather than pay professionals to do it for them because they think that it's going to be too expensive. But as I mentioned before, the service we provide works out at £5 a day. And a lot of people can earn a lot more than £5 a day if they had somebody doing the social media management for them.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it's incredibly important, especially at that sort of cost level, to actually outsource anything that you could get somebody else to do who is an expert in that field. The problem with social media is, and particularly with the algorithm tweaks that constantly go on, I think is that you're constantly trying to play catch up as a practitioner. So I'd say stay in your own lane, do what you're brilliant at because you are an expert in complementary medicine, therapy, natural health care, what have you, and let the experts actually take the wheel and do the rest for you. I think that works very, very well. The other thing I think that, the other piece of advice, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Neil, but what I've been talking to my practice building group on Facebook about is looking at the platforms, the social media platforms where your demographic, your target demographic actually hangs out. So, you know, your target demographic in all likelihood isn't going to be on TikTok. They may probably not even be on Instagram, but the big platforms, I think, for the general complementary medical demographic is certainly YouTube, looking at the stats just very recently, and actually surprisingly enough still Facebook. You can dabble with Instagram by all means, but I personally think that because we practitioners need to develop that know, like and trust factor, that essentially is the way of growing your reputation and business, by getting yourself out there and having people see you, and going back to what we said right at the beginning of communicating. I think that certainly YouTube is really one of the best opportunities for practitioners at the moment. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yes, very much so. There's an old saying in marketing, which is fish where the fish are.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that captures it nicely. You know, another way of putting it is, if you have a job vacancy and you want to appoint a Guardian reader, then don't advertise in the Daily Mirror.
Exactly.
It's knowing, where am I likely to get interest in my business? What's likely to bring people, bring to their attention what I or we have to offer in our practice.
Okay, fantastic. So we're actually just about over time now. I know that some people came to the meeting late. The meeting has been recorded, so please don't worry. You won't miss out on any of Neil's pearls of wisdom, and they really are pearls, and so helpful for all of us in practice. Neil, is there anything that you would like to say to wrap up at all?
Well, just to encourage people to do the maths, basically. Think about how much you charge per hour or per day for your work, and compare that with how much it would cost you to outsource your digital marketing, and see whether it's actually worth the investment. And linked to that, what I would say is, I have developed an email-based course around digital marketing, which is free of charge, and that's available at www.caringbusinessbuilder.com. So
Right.
that's caringbusinessbuilder.com.
In the chat box. Caringbusinessbuilder.com.
Yeah, .com.
Caringbusinessbuilder.com. Let me just pop that through in the notes to everybody, so everybody will get that. And also, of course, everybody, do please remember that we will be giving you all of Neil's contact details, so that you're not just left hanging after this. I'm sure you've probably got lots more questions for him, but we've only got this very short time together. So I want to wrap up and thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Roberta, for sitting in, and lastly, thank you, Neil. You've been absolutely superb and so very helpful and very generous with sharing your expertise. It's much appreciated.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.